Hey, everybody. Nice to see you again, and welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. I'm your host, Brian Doyle, and I'm excited today because I've got a guest that we've started doing some work with over at VCIO Toolbox. And as we prepare for release of an integration, and I want to welcome Connor Swalm, one of the co-founders over at Phin Security, to the podcast today. Connor, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Really excited about talking a little bit more to you today. You know, almost every podcast we kick off with a little backstory about the person, but I've seen some of your posts out there. One of the things I admire is your vulnerability out in a public forum and really helping other business owners that might be struggling understand, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel as long as you keep working hard. Maybe share a little bit about how you came to form Phin, because it's really a fascinating story for those that might not have heard it yet.
Sure. First thing I always share with people is I don't recommend anyone starts a business ever. There's the saying in the industry, just hating your job is not enough reason to start an MSP. And I definitely understand that sentiment, having now started a company. It's like you have to be actually like a psychopath to do this and then get kicked down and get back up. And so that's the first thing I tell people. But how I got started is I was actually flipping houses in college to pay for my student loans. I graduated, was flipping about 4 homes at a time, and then bought a home that I shouldn't have. And all of my advisors, all my investors, everyone that I had asked for advice for in the past and, I counseled for their wisdom, all said I was making a mistake. And I essentially, flipped them the middle finger and was like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I do. I was like 21 at the time.
Yeah.
I literally just graduated. And so, of course, my head didn't fit through a door. And I thought everything I touched turned to gold. I was making a ton of money. And so I buy this house and I lose all of it. I ended up losing close to $100,000 personally, which was everything I had saved up over the course of the year.
Which is a huge sum at 21. Let me tell you, when I was 21, I didn't have half that backstory yet.
Yeah. I mean, what a lot of people don't know is like, the money hurts to lose, but also what I lost was I was about to propose to my longtime girlfriend. I was about to go buy a home. I was about to go start a family. I was about to move to my life forward. And like instantaneously, I lost it all, had to move into my parents' basement, had nothing but the shirt on my back, and got real depressed. And in my parents' house, I kind of came to the realization I only liked real estate for the money. So I was like, well, what do I actually like? It has to be, it was software and math, which is what I had studied in college. And so I just started building cybersecurity tools. And Phin is like the third iteration of I just walked downstairs every day and built what I thought was cool, got other people involved along the way, some of whom are still involved, some of whom are not. And we just kept, meeting MSPs and we ran across one of them in the process of building these tools. And I'll never forget their phrase to me. This is something I say all the time. I was talking to them about their problems. We ended up settling on awareness training. It's what we do. And they ended our conversation by saying, don't build me a better tool. Build me something shittier that's easier to use, and I'll work with you tomorrow. And I was like, that's I can build bad software. It was just me in my underwear at that time. So I was like, yes, I can do this. And we never looked back.
Yeah. And, I think there's a lot to that statement. Easier is oftentimes better. And, as a guy that runs a fairly complex system, unfortunately, because it's really, has a couple tentacles to it. Sometimes I want to look back and go, how can we start it again from the ground floor and make it simpler and make it easier, for some of our end users? Not that it's super complex, but there's hidden gems that you can find along the way. And I think that approach of keeping things simple, especially when you're going after a very straightforward topic, right? Deliver training to people, track whether or not they're finishing it, and then continue to educate them long term, right? That's a pretty straightforward concept that you guys are running, but it's one of the most necessary concepts out there when you look at all the frameworks in the marketplace.
Yeah, it was kind of a shock to me because I had no understanding of any size cybersecurity, whether that's small business or up to enterprise. And so when they started giving me insight into, well, this is how we typically have to use enterprise focused software. This is how it typically doesn't work for us. Look at the 5 examples I have in my own stack right now here. I'll show you. Yeah. And then they'd actually go into their tools and say, I got to do this. I got to do that. And I think if more vendors just sat down and thought to themselves, how would someone feel if they did this 50 times right now? And if the answer is like horrible, you should probably find a way to make them do it once.
Yep. No, I agree. You know, and a lot of the new tools that are coming in are helping enable softwares to bring more of the automation, bring more of the integration capabilities in. That's certainly, you know, for me, a big focus for 2024 is how do we automate kind of, you know, an easy one-click, at least baseline assessment. And then you can choose if you want to put the manual steps on top of that for QBR efforts, as an example. But you know, you were mentioning the upcoming Flow by Roost show that you're going to be at. You know, there's a perfect example of let's make people's life simpler, right? And help them automate.
Aaron, the founder of Roost, was actually one of the first people I met in the industry. One of the reasons we got started in this industry is me and my co-founder, who's my best friend, Josh, we started putting memes under people's LinkedIn posts. And we found one person specifically, a guy by the name of Wes Spencer. Who was or one of the co-founders at Roost, and Aaron was the other one. And for whatever, I still ask him all the time, hey, why'd you decide to respond to us? We were just some dumb kids doing some dumb things. Like, he goes, I don't know, but it looked like you guys were having a blast. It looked like you were going to get it done. And I felt like you were going to do anything to make it work. And so him and Aaron were some of the first people we ever met. In the industry. They were still at Perch at the time, and they had literally just announced their sale to ConnectWise. And that's actually how I got to my first event too, is I called Wes up on a Friday. He's like, what are you doing on Monday? It's like, I'm working. He goes, no, you're not. You're coming down to Florida. You're going to go to IT Nation Secure for one of the biggest industry conferences. I was like, I have no dollars. I don't want to go talk to people. I studied math in college for a reason. It wasn't because I was this wonderful socialite.
Introvert on the inside, extrovert on the outside, right? Public perception. But
I get a lot of energy by just being by myself and just learn. It's what I like. And so I have to be real honest. If Josh, my co-founder, wouldn't have been on that call and said, I don't care what you're doing on Monday, Connor, you're going to be at that conference, I probably wouldn't have gone. We probably wouldn't be talking today.
It takes those steps, but it's getting out of your comfort zone. All the good things happen in the uncomfortable in life. And until you kind of shake into that zone, it's just going to be status quo repeating itself. So, you know, that's a huge step. It's a huge trust in, you know, some of the leaders. You know, obviously Wes is a respected member of the community and certainly shares a lot of information. What they're doing over at Empath is great. Him and Alex and the crew over there. And, you know, having some, I won't call it sponsorship, but having somebody over there that's willing to mentor you through that process the first time had to be amazing.
That's kind of what we told him is, hey, we're a group of young people, like literally we were like 21, 22 at the time. We know nothing, but we have this really cool idea that we're really excited about. Please teach us everything you know. It's like, I see what you've done at Perch. I can see it online. I went to the conference and it was like everyone in a purple shirt was a part of a cult that I wanted to jump into. It's like, this is the weirdest thing ever. Like, teach me how to do that, please. I don't know anything about this. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, especially for everyone listening. You just need to be a sponge. There's somebody out there who's just a little bit further ahead of you. And you're not trying to be them. You're trying to accomplish some of the things that they have. They're probably going to be really willing to help you. People love those who help themselves, and you just need to demonstrate that.
You know, and I've always been, you know, of the go-giver mindset. Also give to those. Whatever you can do for those that are helping you, make sure you're trying to help them twofold going out the door as well, because, you know, relationships should be a two-way street. I think all of us have been in those take type relationships. But if you really want to make it in this industry, and it's what makes some of the leaders that folks see every day so awesome, is they're always willing to share. They're willing to share with no expectation in return. And, you know, the returns just come through being good people out there in the industry, helping educate. I also don't want to gloss over one other point that you brought there a moment ago, just for a quick second. Posting memes, doing something to stand out is critical. You know, I look at all the posts, I'm guilty of it too sometimes, where it's just a vanilla response to somebody's thing. And if they're getting 67 comments, they're not seeing you, right? Obviously, you putting memes there kind of put you a little bit front and center, and certainly put that fun part out on the table as well. So awesome approach.
Yeah. That actually came about completely by accident. A
Most
lot
of the
of
best things are organic, right?
well, a lot of our decisions, if people are like, why did they do that? The answer to most of them is there wasn't an adult in the room. It's like, that's literally it. Somebody asks, people ask us all the time, why the hell did you guys wear purple life jackets to conferences? And it's like, we thought it'd be cool. That was it. That was the end of the discussion. So we
Yeah.
decided to bring, we thought it'd be cool. We were going to have fun wearing purple life jackets. And that was it. We knew we needed to stand out. Like, there's all these other things. We knew that we needed to catch people's eyes, and we'd be in the sea of vendors in our first conference, but we thought it'd be fun. It's also why we make like weirdly
T-shirts.
designed t-shirts. It's why we, like, most of our online content is memes. It's authentic for us. So that's what I would advise people to do, is like, you have to stand out, but make sure it's you. Make sure it's you that's standing out, not some version of someone else.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be authentic to your personality, because it's impossible to fake it forever, right? If it's not you, if it's not embedded, it's going to come out eventually that that's not the way you approach things. So let's kind of pivot a little bit from your background into, what does Phin bring to the marketplace? We've touched upon it a little bit, but share with me, really, what's your mission and how does it help an MSP?
Sure. So first and foremost, there's two reasons why people buy awareness training. One is a check the box exercise, right? Whether it's compliance or cyber insurance or regulation or anything. The other is to create some modicum of increased security because your people behave in a more secure fashion. And the thing that most MSPs complained about when we had started in this industry was, this is a really low margin activity for us, right? It's not an incredibly expensive part of your stack when compared to your RMM or other tools that you're like your EDR solution. Maybe you're doing a 24/7 SOC. Those you not only have margin on, but they're more expensive. So the question became for us, well, how do we make them, like, literally, if they could click one button and have this do everything they wanted to check the box, that would be the ideal solution, because whatever little margin does exist, they'd be able to retain. And what I found out later is that poor individual who happens to be the newest employee at that MSP no longer has to spend their entire time running awareness training campaigns.
Yeah.
So it was really just a huge focus on automation. Whereas when I would go talk to founders of other awareness training companies, there was this enormous focus on the content. And I always bring up this story. When I was studying math in college, I loved it. Like, the only reason I went to college was so that I could study math. I didn't need to go there for a career. I was flipping homes at the time, like I'd mentioned earlier. So, and that's what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. I just really like it. And anytime I would try to talk to anyone about the math that I was learning, like the stuff that got me up in the morning, like literally I'd wake up and be like, I can't wait to get into class today. I can't wait to go do my homework. Like, I was that kind of nerd, right? Nobody, like, the conversation would end right when I brought it up. They'd be like, yeah, my mom's calling me. Sorry, gotta go, bud. I don't want to talk to you. So when I would go to the employees at these clients of these MSPs, and I'd start talking to them about their cybersecurity education, I'd get the exact same response. It was just like, oh, I've been here before. It's like, these people fundamentally don't care about this content in a lot of ways, or it turns them off in such ways that they don't want to engage with it. Or sometimes what I see, their security folk have beaten them with a stick for so long that they no longer want to do anything. I see that sometimes too. Yeah. And so that immediately cemented our focus on, it's not going to be about the content. It's going to be about the use case for the MSP. The MSP is going to click a button, and then we'll figure out how we're going to make the user experience better. Yeah.
And that's probably, probably the next question I got for you, as an end user, a lot of them don't understand that they're one of the biggest vulnerability points in their client's environment. You don't undersell the fact that your software might be the lowest price in the stack. It's also one of the most valuable from my perception, because the human elements where most breaches come from, and it's usually accidental, right? So when we look at things like that, how does your system really get those end users engaged, so you don't have a lot of people that are just ignoring the training? And you've got this big gap now when you look at kind of that security awareness compliance when you're reporting to controls or cyber liability insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start by saying we have a ton of vision on where we'd like to take this. So we're not the company we'd want to be, like, long term, but we do a lot of things correct right now. One of which is no logins for end users. So there is no barrier to doing your training. We've made sure of that. There is a link that you could save. Like, you can click on any link that we send to you. It'll send you to the right place at the right time whenever you need to. So there's no barrier. The second is we focused like very deeply on the phishing simulation piece.
Yep.
And that came from a philosophical, honestly, probably debate at this point, that not only we had with other security experts, but we were having internally, where my perspective on teaching users about how to recognize vulnerability was a concept that I call more scrimmages, less batting cages. Everyone's gotten that dumb phishing simulation where they all get it at the same time. It's set in such a way that you recognize it.
Yeah, they're talking amongst themselves and diminishing the effectiveness of it.
Correct. That's the exact behavior you want to incentivize. So, by the way, I'm not upset that behavior exists. It's like, wow, everyone's working together. That's great. However, they recognize that this was a phish, not because it was a phish, but because of the way that you orchestrated the test. So it's like you giving a test to somebody and they can get all the right answers because of something else you've already put on the test. It's like, okay. So what we wanted to do was make these super realistic phishing simulations and then not give them training after. Teach them what our platform did to edit that phish, to change it for them specifically, because we have all of their stuff in the past, and we can see that they clicked on gift card scams or they fell for appeals of authority. It's like, all right, we're going to keep testing them with things that we think they're actually vulnerable to.
No, that's awesome. Now, I want to go back a little bit to, though, the maintaining compliance piece, and forgive me on that. Obviously, governance and compliance is a big part of my world, so I love that part of it. How does Phin help with those people that aren't clicking those links? As you said, they can save them, they can go back to them later. Those links will be live for them, and obviously they're unique to the individual. But how does like an administrator with that single click concept make sure that they're actually getting people to do the work, and what can they do to kind of push them on that? Because that's where I see the gap really coming into, Connor, he never clicks those links, but everybody else does. But he's a vulnerability for me, right?
Exactly. It's also a debate I have with the industry. Is like, well, just because I've not been phished so far doesn't mean I won't tomorrow.
Exactly.
Something could happen in my life. We're human. We're
Like
all
the best of us. You can be busy and see something and click on it and then go, oh no.
I get a lot of Slack messages through all the various, Slack communities I'm a part of that are security experts. They're like, I hate you guys. Like, my company uses you internally because we give NFR accounts to MSPs.
Yep.
And it's like, I've been trying to tell all of you, just because you know security and just because you are technically able does not mean you're invulnerable. You're human. Unless you've escaped your biology, you're vulnerable. So please tell me, are you human or you're not?
And you've never had a down moment or a mental distraction in your life, right?
Yeah. Or you never expected an invite to a SharePoint website, or you never expected a package to show up on your front door. It's like, those are super pedantic examples of phishes, but it's like, you expect communication. Somebody could swoop right in and
Yep.
simulate it. So on the reporting, governance, compliance piece, there's a couple of things. One is all users who have open training will continuously get reminders. So you need to continue getting reminded. The second is per tenant, you can set up stakeholder reporting. So you can actually send the list of, we call it users to watch, but it's people who need their manager to step in and say, hey, next time that comes up, you need to go do it. So that I don't think the MSP should be doing that. You're not their boss. You're a very important piece of their business, but you're not the person that signs their paycheck. So that person should get a report. It's like, all right, I need to go email, or I need to go walk into the office of these 7 people because they're the reason we're not compliant with our training right now. And that's solved a lot of the problems so far.
No, that's great. So, we talked a little bit about, the process. We've talked about some of your concepts of how you came about doing it. And certainly, easier is easier, truly, right? And getting there. Let's talk a little bit about what the future might bring for Phin. What are some of the things that you're looking to accomplish, over the next year or two? I mean, let's face it, none of us have a crystal ball that probably goes out much further than that in terms of products and features, right?
It's definitely true. I can sit here and claim that I do, but the reality is, next week, next month, next quarter, I'm going to get new information. I'm going to, all right, I was wrong.
Yep.
We need to move in this direction now. But here's the general direction I actually think the industry needs to move in. So I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the industry.
Oh, that's great.
I think the awareness training industry, as it stands today, is a zombie. It's existed for 30 years, 25 years, something like that. So something very long, honestly, probably longer than I've been alive. And yet the problem of humans making mistakes that lead to security incidents has gotten worse every single year since at least the Verizon CBR has been recording it.
Yeah.
And so when I look at that and I look at this industry, which is making billions of dollars a year collectively, it's like, hold on. It's like cybersecurity spend has increased dramatically. Awareness training spend has increased dramatically. We're all promising that we're going to, teach people to recognize mistakes, to not make the mistakes and recognize what's going on. And they're making more of them.
Yeah.
Every year. So I think there's something fundamentally missing. And what I've said is I think awareness training needs to move from check the box and into the inbox. So there are 3 business systems that every company has, virtually every company has, let's put it that way. That is some kind of email gateway / firewall that's blocking, malicious traffic. There is your training and your phishing, like simulations. And then there is your reporting and your triaging, right? So those are all 3 business systems that exist. All 3 of them have information about what vulnerabilities users are exposed to in your organization, and also what vulnerabilities they are actually going to fall for or recognize. And so what I'd like to see in the future, and one of the things that we're building towards, is those 3 systems should work together, right? You should be feeding the phishing simulation data and the reporting data into the into your email gateway to look at, all right, what attacks are we currently fending off? And another way of phrasing that is, what attack is going to get through at some point? It's not a perfect.
It's going to fake out the email security systems because it happens, right?
Yeah, it's a when not if mentality for a lot of reasons. The difference between legitimate and illegitimate communication is so narrow that it is impossible to block all of it. That's a statement my co-founder makes all the time. It's when I ask, why don't we just build an email gateway? He's like, no. Here's the problem they're solving. We don't want to solve that problem. It's the difference between legitimate and illegitimate communication is impossible to distinguish. And so what I'd like to see in the future is, like, you can look into your gateway and you could say, all right, we're fending off these attacks. I can compare that with the phishing and the reporting data we have on users to create what is the vulnerable population to this kind of attack that we'll get through eventually. And we can do that through categorizing the phishes, categorizing the emails coming in to the email gateway. And then we can start to actually give more scrimmages and less batting cages to these users that is very relevant to their life, very relevant to their experience so far. And we can do a very similar thing on training as well. We can say, what training have these people received so far? What has their behavior been as a result? And then what do we need to train them on now? Because let's face it, at some point this attack's going to get through, and we need them to be able to recognize that when it shows up on their door. So that's kind of the direction that we're heading in. We also get a lot of requests from MSPs where there is a ton of functionality that exists in, like, enterprise awareness training that just isn't one-click, one-to-many functionalities that, that's not super sexy to talk about, because it's like essentially saying, we're going to let you share a phishing template with all your clients. It's like, that's not sexy to talk about, but that's something that they ask.
No, but there's truth to that. Between our MSP exit and me starting BCIO Toolbox, I went to work big corporate for a little while. So I was a VP at United Healthcare, and they had different training sets depending on your role, depending on how you have to communicate out. None of it was sexy, but all of it was required, right? No bonuses if you don't finish this was kind of the what they had to hold us to it. But it wasn't, but like you said, it wasn't sexy. Most of the managers around me who were not as in tune with cybersecurity were like, I can't believe I got to do this stuff. But, it was a wealth of information that didn't need to be shared.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that left for the MSP industry still.
Yeah.
Or rather, our MSPs have told us a lot of valuable things that we should be building for them. And we are. It's just a mountain, as you know. It's a mountain of work to get through.
And I'll close with, if you're watching the news as we record this, United Healthcare's change division had a user error lead to a huge breach that's costing them millions.
Yeah.
So it's those are the interesting things that do come out of not having that human element protected.
I made a LinkedIn post yesterday, and one thing I'm very, very careful about is I never promise that if you use us, you won't get hacked.
None of us can promise that, right?
No, and I'm friends with people who eviscerate vendors who do that. I love to watch it because I'm like, oh, grab the popcorn. It's like watching a fight.
Yep.
So I forget where I was going to take that, honestly.
No, it's all good. I'll take it in one way. You know, the only way to make a network totally secure is unplug it from the wall, turn everything off, right? I mean, it's just a reality. Things are going to come through. People are going to do what they do, and it is more of a when than if situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you're also seeing spend going up, because CEOs and owners are starting to look at this as a risk-based problem and not it could happen, fear, uncertainty, and doubt problem.
What I had meant to say was in that specific point, somebody like I think it was actually the exact United Healthcare Group. I was reading up their public statement and then some security practitioners' interpretation of it, and my response was the following: "Is like, you know what would have stopped this? A phone call." It's like, employee picks up the phone. Hey, did you mean to do this to me? And I was like, all right, how are we at a place in cybersecurity? We're a multi-billion-dollar company. And I know why we're here. I'm not trying to.
No, it's because that person's afraid to make that phone call because they think they're going to get, a punitive problem's going to happen to them. At least that's my perspective.
That's definitely some of the motivation. I still hear that a ton. Horrible practice. I hear of companies who tie people's compensation to their performance on phishing and training.
Which is
and
ridiculous.
It's like, that's that's going to motivate them to do?
Open
Never
nothing.
talk to your security team ever again. 100%.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. I think you've got to, the right culture is putting one where people can self-report when they've done something. Because as we know, and I think that's got to be part of the education. I'm sure it's part of yours that you're putting out there. The earlier we can get in front of a problem, the less the compound effect will be by, I'm sure a 10x factor or something on that order. So giving people that ability to go, oops, I think I did this without repercussion is going to help foster that open, dialogue that we all need to have when we're trying to combat these threats.
You almost need like a see something, say something culture, like you see at the airport with TSA, because, a question that a lot of help desk employees ask when somebody says my computer's acting weird. It's like, all right, tell me one of two things. Is there some weird black little window that has text that doesn't look recognizable scrolling on your computer right now? No. Okay. Is your mouse moving and you're not moving it? No. Okay. Just restart your computer. But what are those two questions getting after? It's like, there's something going on that's and it's evident to somebody with a smidge more experience and understanding that there's somebody else controlling your computer or something else doing it. And it's
and I think the other part that needs to be educated is if you self-report some of these things, your security team's going to love you. You're not causing them more work. You're saving them from the stressful work that can come down the line later.
There should almost be like a reward program. It's like this person reported 4 actual security violations of our security. And it's not like
something akin to a bug bounty kind of thing, right?
Yeah, let's keep it bug bounty, not like Red Scare pre-World War II America. Like, we don't want to be spying on our neighbors and stuff, and Big Brother's always watching, because that denigrates your culture. But what you do want is that bug bounty, like, hey, we're all working together to do something really cool and to help out the company.
Awesome. Well, we're getting near the end of our time together, Connor. Before I share some of the places you're going to be, any closing thoughts from you that you'd like to share with the community?
Any closing thoughts?
It's okay if there's none.
I'm trying to think. I'm really passionate about talking about business culture and whatnot, and startups. It's the life I've chosen, or some say it's the life that chose me. I would say hating your job is not enough of a reason to start an MSP. So you should really dig down into most of the reasons. I guess most of the good reasons that I see people starting MSPs is not only did they want a little bit of individuality, like they wanted to control their own destiny, they also wanted to have an impact on a community. And that community happened to be where they lived, right? You have a skill set, or you believe you do, that not many other people have. Turning that into a business is sometimes the best decision, sometimes the worst decision you could ever do. There's my advice.
Awesome. Well, Connor, I really want to thank you for joining us today. Folks, if you want to learn more about Phin, they're going to be out at quite a few trade shows over the course of the next month or so. Go visit them at PAX 8 Beyond, down at Flow at Roost, like we said, and then we'll all be down at IT Nation Secure. So love to see folks, and I'm sure Connor would as well. Stop by and say hello and share what you thought of today's podcast. To get this podcast, you can download it anywhere you get it on the web, as well as watching it up on YouTube. So, go up there, check it out, and subscribe. Connor, I really want to thank you both for coming on the podcast. And certainly we've enjoyed working with your team as we start building out a integration to you and partner a little bit deeper as well. But thank you for joining me today. And I hope to see you again when we're down in Florida.
Thanks for having me, Brian. It was a blast chatting with you.
You bet.